Hello everybody, welcome to the Red Devil Experience. We're here live with the Red Devil Daily. We are going to update you on everything about Manchester United that has gone over in the past 24 hours. Ruben Amorim can have potentially the biggest clear out in Manchester United's recent history. There's a lot of news coming out about that. He's had a lot of quotes today, a lot about Manchester United, particularly saying that he chose Manchester United. It is his club. I think it's a big statement to make. He has a lot of other statements that he made about Manchester United and choosing to come to Manchester United, what it means to him to come and take on this project. We're going to get into that. There's a lot of quotes. There's a lot of other news, Euro news and stuff like that. So stick around and stick through the show because we're going to get through all of it. If you can, please smash the like button for me because it helps the channel grow. If you're watching this show after it is aired, get involved in the comments afterwards because we like to hear from you and opinions from you as well. And if you're new and you want to subscribe and join the community and join, just the channel, then subscribe and make sure you hit the notification bell so that you don't miss a live because we are always going live. But we're going to get straight into the show. We're going to start with basically kind of where we got left off from yesterday. So Rude basically coming out doing, his post-match press conference, alluding to the fact that seems like he is going to stay once Ruben Amorim comes in to Manchester United and officially starts and takes over. And Sky have put out an update saying that Manchester United players want Ruud van Nistelrooy to remain at the club when Ruben Amorim takes charge. They appreciate the way he has communicated with them. And an update that follows that is also that beyond Ruud van Nistelrooy, there's also a strong desire for Darren Fletcher, currently first-team coach, to remain at Manchester United under Ruben Amorim. Now, I have mixed feelings about this. I don't necessarily know how to feel about this. On one hand, I love Ruud. I would love him to stay at the club. Part of me, I worry because I don't want the manager and his coaching staff to be undermined by Ruud van Nistelrooy. And it's not Ruud van Nistelrooy's fault. It would go on the players because, as Sky are reporting, the players do want Ruud to stay and they do appreciate and respect him. And it could turn into a dynamic where they might not necessarily get on with the manager. Ruud has already had some time in charge as, first team manager temporarily. But, if things aren't going well in that aspect, they might tend to care to Ruud a little bit more than the actual manager, or in this case, the head coach, because he's no longer a manager. And it's a little bit worrying for me. But I think if Ruben Amorim is okay with it and he wants to do it, then I'm willing to give it a go. I'm willing to give it a shot. But I do have this worry about it because we do constantly question the mentality and the attitude of some of these players that are at Manchester United and have been at Manchester United. And I do think we need some type of a little bit more of a cultural reset, an attitude reset, and a mentality reset. And I think with Ruud van Nistelrooy staying, if there is some type of friction between the players and the manager, they might be going behind his back or so. Now, I would expect Ruud to do the right thing and obviously go to Amorim and let him know. I don't think Ruud is there to cause problems. I don't think Ruud is there to try and stab anybody in the back or take anybody's job. So I think it could work. I think he is good for the club in many ways, and I think Darren Fletcher is also good for the club in many ways. So I'm not totally against it, but I'm a little worried of it, a little weary of it. Alien Tenno is in here saying, big up RD, man, the game was garbage yesterday. Yeah, it wasn't a great quality game. We've seen the problems that Amorim, the job that he has to do on the player side. He has a lot to fix. He has a lot that he has to transform. And it's going to take time. I think one of the things that we need to start coming to reality, it was all good and well that INEOS moved quick and all this excitement and all this hype built around Ruben Amorim, and look at the system that he's implemented at Sporting and look at the job he's done at Sporting, and he won the title. you know, the first season he was there, that they didn't do it in 19 years. That's all well and great, but I think now is time for the fan base to really get serious and to get level-headed. This man has a huge, huge job on his hand. We have a lot of problems in the squad. We have a lot of work to do, and we have a lot of ground and progress to make up. And when you go to Manchester United, the size of the club, you know, it's never going to be an easy task, especially for the fact of how far behind we have been for so many years. It's going to take time. If he hits the ground running when he comes in and we get a good run, you know, absolutely excellent. But that doesn't mean that he's going to permanently solve all of the problems that we have. We have a lot of problems when it comes to the players and the things that they do on the pitch, their decision making, their positioning, movement off of the ball, confidence, some, you know, ability in some aspects. We have a lot of issues that need to be sorted out, and it's going to take more than just 1 to 2 seasons. But obviously you want to try and make as much progress as possible. So when he comes in, you try to make progress from what we've shown this season so far, make progress from that point to the end of the season, and then you continue to build on it. And that is the hope that we really need to have. And that's kind of it's kind of my goal that I've set for him personally. Lines is in here. How you doing, buddy? An alien saying I was at the game and that Xerxes effort was just pathetic. Yeah, I mean, we talked about him yesterday a little bit. You know, it's a tough situation for Xerxes because you want to defend him because he's new. You know, it's his first season, and I think he's really taken a bigger step than he's sort of ready for. But again, at the same time, it is a little bit hard to defend him because he just seems so off of it. You know, the drop off from Rasmus to him is so big that it really is. It's hard to try and defend it because it just isn't good enough. And you know, the only thing that you can really defend him on is you got to give him more time, and we got to see what comes out of it, and you know, just kind of hope that whatever Manchester United saw in him, or whatever their reasons were for bringing him in, you know, hopefully that he is able to develop into a better player, because he is clearly, you know, far from what we actually need, and far from being helpful to the squad. And part of that problem is his speed. Now I think general speed in terms of sprinting, it's you know, it's never very likely for you know, if somebody is slow, they're going to be slow. I think it was one of the issues that plagued Maguire as well. Like, you're never going to make somebody necessarily faster. But I think one thing that Xerxes, an area that he can improve on, is just the quickness of his decision making. And the quickness of actions that he does on the pitch. He needs to release the ball faster. He needs to think a little bit faster, you know, when the ball comes to his feet, before the ball comes to his feet. He needs to be quicker in those things. And I think he can do that, because I think you can train your brain in a football aspect to do so. But, you know, again, I think that comes with time. You can't just, that's not something that just happens overnight. And obviously then he has to show up in his ability in certain places and stuff like that. But no, I do get it, but it is tough. The chat, it's freezing on me. Oh, I'm sorry. Grace is in here saying I'll give Amorim 3 months before fans turn on him. Well, you know, I think there will be. There's always a section, right? There's always that section of people, right? You know, I think if you look at any fan base, there's always that section, Grace. So I don't think you're necessarily wrong. But I don't think the majority. You know, you're never going to be able to please everybody. You're never going to have 100% support. You know, you might have 90, you might have 95, you might have 99, but you're never going to have 100% support. But I think, you know, those people are always like that anyway, and I don't think many people take them necessarily seriously. So, you know, I give it longer than 3 months for the majority, but you know, I don't disagree with you, Grace. If I pronounce your name wrong, I'm sorry. I try my best. Para bitch, Parbit, Singh. I'm just gonna call you Singh. What are your thoughts on Rashford? Do you think Rashford will thrive under Amorim by any chance? I think it's 50-50 on Marcus Rashford because I think he can, and I think maybe he won't. I think, really it's up to Marcus Rashford. I think, there's a little bit of influence that comes from the system. Maybe the system makes him play, gives him the ability to play his best game, and maybe a little bit of influence from the manager as well, depending on the relationship they have. If he's able to really get through to Marcus Rashford, maybe it could help him out mentality wise, a little bit ability wise and stuff like that. I really think it's 50-50, kind of sort of like his time at Manchester United. It's really been on and off. He has seasons where he's looks absolutely world class. He's performing in the top 5 of all of the top 5 leagues. And then he has seasons where he is one of the worst players out there. And I think it really does come down to Marcus Rashford at the end of the day. He has to want it. He has to want to be on that pitch. He has to want to work hard. He has to want to fight. And he has to want the best for the club. And him personally, he has to be in a good space mentally, and physically. So, I think there's a lot that it's up to Marcus Rashford, and there's slight influences that are a little bit outside of just himself. But I think right now, it's kind of a little bit of a wait and see. Let's see what happens, once Amorim comes in, and let's see what Marcus Rashford gives us on the pitch. I think you can make arguments for he can turn it around. I think you can make arguments for he will fail, or it's not going to be good for him. So yeah. Singh is saying, I think Shaw, Malacia, Harry, Evans, Lindelöf, Rashford should be sold off. Well, fair enough. And I think, I kind of agree, at least to the very fact with Shaw. Malacia, for me personally, I don't think I've seen enough of him to say that he should 100% be sold. I would like to see him a little bit more. So let's see what, when he comes back. And I think a big factor for Malacia will be, because he's been gone for so long and he had setbacks and he had that mishap with the surgery and stuff like that. A big factor will be, will he be able to stay fit, or has he become some sort of an injury prone? Because if he becomes some sort of an injury prone, then I think more than likely we should probably move him on. If he is not injury prone and he can provide something, whether he would be a sub, or he takes the opportunity to become a starter, albeit you can make arguments for his ability, because he doesn't, when he was playing, he didn't show like he would really fit that well into the system that Amorim is going to do. Harry, I agree with as well. Evans, I think, I don't think Evans is going to get sold off, because I think Evans he's old, and I think this is the end. Like, if we don't give him a 1-year extension or a 1-year contract, I think he'll retire. So it's either Evans retires, or he stays as a backup emergency. For me, I don't have a problem with Evans staying as a backup emergency, as long as INEOS go and get, 2 to 3 other center backs, to fill the rest of the squad out. I don't necessarily have a problem with that. I think Lindelöf, I'm not against it, but Amorim might want him now, so he might stay. And Rashford, fair enough. It's a very division. There's people that want him to stay, that think he's good. Some people that think that he could. And Singh believes that's the only way we have a rebuild. Well, we do have rebuild news, and we're gonna get into that. It's gonna come a little bit into the show. I just want to get to your comments first. Lines is saying Rashford should stay. See, this is what I'm saying. It's a very split in the fan base. Rashford should stay, and Maguire should definitely stay if we play at the back. Play 3 at the back, in my opinion. Well, it depends what the plans are for Manchester United, who we can get. Because I think if we can get another 2 center backs in the summer or something like that, then maybe you can make argument for getting rid of Maguire and Lindelöf. But it all depends. It all depends. And Rashford for me, listen, the thing is, and one of the things that we're gonna have to see is, Amorim is gonna demand him, especially if he plays him in sort of a wing back, which I don't think he will. I think he'll probably play him as, up top. But either way, Marcus Rashford, to me, one of his biggest problems is that he doesn't track back enough, and he picks and chooses when to track back, and you can't do that. You can't do that. I think we've seen that, we've seen it a numerous amount of times, but yesterday was really bad because he tracked back a couple times, then he didn't track back a few times. And we saw that, Gusto was overlapping and Chelsea were hitting that side a lot because it was exposed, because Marcus Rashford was not tracking back and he was not helping Mazzawari, and Mazzawari was, on an island basically by himself, having to mark two people, and defend two people, and you're never going to be able to defend two people. It doesn't matter if you're Roberto Carlos or, whoever, Theo Hernandez. You're never going to be able to defend two people. You need help from your teammates. So, again, Marcus Rashford, he's going to have to get that through his head, I think, that, especially when Amorim comes in, because he is also a very demanding manager. He's a strict manager. And I think if Marcus Rashford chooses to pick and choose when to track back, I think he will find himself not as involved as he is now. So Richard is in here too. Good to see you, Richard. How you doing? How you feeling? We were singing Glazers out yesterday. Well, we love that, and hopefully one day they will leave. I hope they will. Grace is in here saying Rashford has never been the best five of anything. He has. I think I think you're always a little bit too harsh on him, Grace. Sometimes rightfully so, and I get that. But he has, that 2 seasons ago under Erik ten Hag, he was performing better than most of the wingers in the world. He was outperforming. He was literally in the top 5 in terms of statistics and output and goals and assists and stuff like that. So he was 17 league goals in three separate seasons when we play specifically to his game. The other 5 seasons I think are around 8 goals per season. Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, but 17 goals in 3 seasons for technically a winger is actually pretty good, and that, especially that one season, the first season under Ten Hag, he was, if you look at the statistics and the goal assist output, he was outperforming all the wingers or most of the wingers in the top 5 leagues. So, but again, you make a good point, and I kind of alluded to it. That's only been like about 3 seasons, and then the other 5 seasons, it certainly drops off. And that's a, it's a problem. You can't have that. So I think really there's a numerous amount of players, and we're gonna get into it because there's a whole list. There's been reports that have come out about what players, certain players. There's a numerous amount of players. They might very well be on their last opportunity, their last chance, and this might very well be their last season at Manchester United. And I think it's fair game for all of them. I think it's fair game for all of them because I think people like Rashford and stuff like that, they've had so many chances. And if you want to be a successful club, you cannot have inconsistency. And I think that's one of the things that I criticize Marcus Rashford the most about, is the inconsistency that he is as a player. And the inconsistency, as Grace has pointed out throughout his career, is that he is almost like a light switch. He's on and off. And he's been, more off than on, but still, when he's on, he's brilliant. When he's off, it's you don't want to watch it. So, Grace saying Mourinho was right, should have sold him. RSV is in here saying if Amorim sacrifices any trophy this season for progression, then I'll be fine with it, as long as there is consistent playing style and no stubbornness and favoritism, unlike the previous manager. Well, I don't think he should necessarily be sacrificing any trophy. I don't think he should. I don't think he really has to. I think you need to try and go for everything you possibly can, and I think he probably will. I don't think he is going to take a standpoint of I'm going to sacrifice a certain trophy to try and to try and get things. I think you can do or I think the best route is probably to try and do both at the same time. That, you know, the real issue is with the consistent playing style is that we are in the midst of a season. It is hard to try and kind of get that. You know, some managers have done it, and you can do it, but it's not as easy. It makes the situation more difficult to do because we have a lot of games that we got to play. But, you know, playing 3 times a week, basically, you don't have as much time for the training to implement that as you would like as a manager. But you can certainly still do it. You can certainly still push and persevere through it. But, you know, it does make it more of a more difficult task. Grace is laughing at the idea of Rashford as a wingback. I've heard it all now. Well, I'm just saying, you know, I'm just spitballing. I'm not saying that, you know, that's where he should put him, but we don't know what he's actually going to decide to do, right? And for that sake, if he does put him there, he would obviously need to run up and down. If he doesn't, then he's not gonna play. He's not gonna flourish in the system, and he's gonna be taken out. So that's kind of what I'm saying, that, you know, it is up to him in that part. But obviously, I don't think that's really where he's going to put him. I think he'll probably put him in that inside forward slot as an attacker. But even if he puts him in that slot, he still needs to press. He still needs to come back on defense. The system is one like that everybody needs to do their job. And it's one of the problems that United have as of right now, is that a lot of people, they pick and choose. A lot of players pick and choose when to do their job on the pitch. They don't do it for 90 minutes. So, you know, it's why we see a real inconsistency in the team and in performances. RSV saying Rashford, Shaw, Bruno leaving next summer will be music to my ears. My only concern is no one will be able to afford the current wages they're on. Well, I think there's ways to do deals about that. I think there is, because I think INEOS have shown that they could sort of kind of do those deals, especially, you know, I think for the likes of a Casemiro, it's a little bit harder. I think for somebody like a Bruno Fernandes and a Marcus Rashford, I think they're not too old, and you can be able to sort out a deal somehow. You know, we've moved Jadon Sancho on. He's obviously younger than both, but you know, he was on massively high wages. I think there is ways to do it. You have to be willing to take a loss in a certain aspect. Obviously, Rashford is an academy player, so it's not necessarily a loss. Anything we make off of him, you know, is pure profit. And Bruno Fernandes, I think you could even, you know, get the fee what we paid for him, even though he is 30. But yeah, for me, I don't know if Bruno will go. I think Rashford and Shaw. I think Shaw definitely the most likely one. I think Rashford, there's certainly, you know, arguments for both sides, and I think it could go either way. I don't necessarily feel like Bruno will go though. You know, and again, we have to wait and see. You know, we could be saying this now, but when Amorim comes in, you know, if Rashford starts hitting highs, if Bruno starts hitting highs, then I don't think, you know, I think the kind of discussion around them will change, and I think kind of the opinion of them, and the way people view them will change. Like, you know, Bruno starts playing back to his best, like he did when he first came to United. I don't think many people will want him sold. I don't think, you know, the club would necessarily want him sold either. So, you know, a lot of it is wait and see. Obviously, we could have our opinions, but RSV also saying if the club can't sell them, then they need to terminate their contracts, like how Arsenal did with Ruben Amorim. Well, certainly, I agree with that. Especially, I agree with it if they are problems. Because I think those players, and it's important to keep that context. I think it is, you know, Uba and Ozil were problems for Arsenal. They were problems in the dressing room. They were problems for the club. And you know, for me, I've said this before, and I'll keep saying it. Any player that is currently at Manchester United that is considered a problem, that is a known problem, especially to the hierarchy, and inside of the club, they need to do what's right. And you know, if it is determined that they are severely a problem and detrimental to the rest of the team, then you got to do what you got to do. If you can't sell them, then you got to cut their contract. You got to get them out. You got to do what's best for the club and the overall project. Alien is saying the Prem and football has overall has become stat-based crazy. The only stat that counts is the back of the net. I feel these players have lost their individuality. Well, a lot of football is stat based. I'm not too crazy about stats, but I mean, statistically wise, and even with my eyes when I was watching Rashford that season, he was performing very, very excellent. And again, part of that was he was putting the ball in the back of the net and he was making goals happen. So, but I'm not too crazy about stats, because stats, they don't tell you the whole picture. There's 10 million stats. You can get stats that give you a positive picture, and you can get stats for a negative picture. For every positive stat, attacking wise, there's a negative stat attacking wise. So, while stats is good, stats aren't the be all and end all. And I think, I prefer the eye test. I prefer what we see with our eyes, and what we see in real time, and not really stats, because stats can be deceiving as well. When they say like a player has 93 pass completion, okay, that's great. It's a really high pass completion, but what kind of passes were they making? Because if they made 75 out of 79 passes and they were all 5-yard passes, well, no shit, he's gonna have a high pass completion. That's like, sometimes they don't get broken down. RSV saying, at least with Maguire, Lindelöf, and other deadwood, they have a year remaining. They'll be free agents in the summer. Yeah, I think it is time, though. I think it is time, and I think things are lining up, and we're going to get into that. But you guys have started off the show very well with a lot of good statements, a lot of good questions. So RSV is saying, if Rashford and Bruno start playing back to the best when Amorim arrives, he will fall into the trap. Then the following season, he will only rely on them solely and will fall off, and he should be ruthless. I mean, yeah, I kind of get that. I try not to be so cynical about it, because I think it's not just them as well. Again, like we've always said, it's the manager and the players. And I think one of the things Manchester United has been missing for some time is a player, is a manager, or in this case, a head coach. I'm never going to get used to that, but a head coach that really gets through to the players. And then also, that's on Amorim as well. There has to be somebody that has the balls. There has to be somebody that has the brains, that while Rashford and Bruno can be very important and very impactful and very good individual players, and perform well in your squad, when they start performing bad, you need to have the balls to move them out of the squad. And I think too many times there was too many managers, especially somebody like Ten Hag, that just refused to do so. Now, I think they all had different reasons. I think Ten Hag, again, he's one of these guys that he's very statistic based. He's very, it's about like consistency and order. Like, and he almost like forces things, and he was very stubborn to make changes, and he wasn't too much of a risk taker. I don't think Amorim is like that. But Amorim has to do his due diligence. I don't think it's bad to try and give Rashford and Bruno an opportunity, and if they come good, it's a good thing. The thing is that it then comes from him. If he is that naive, then he isn't the right person for the job. The right person for the job will be one that when Rashford and Bruno, or if Rashford and Bruno, they perform good and then they fall off like they've done at times with other managers, then you have to make the change, because it has to be about player performances and it has to be merit based. Richard saying, it's all okay saying get rid of players, but they also need replaced, because you do need a squad. And that's one of the issues that we have. And I think that's one of the things that people, they don't really overlook. They overlook it. Like, it's very easy to say, get these players out, but you have to look at the circumstances of the club as well. Like, we are certainly kind of, there's this aspect, and there's always this story that we're struggling. We're walking a very fine line on PSR and FFP, and our how much money we can spend. It depends on, players we can sell, where we finish in the season? Can we get Champions League football? Because that's going to give us an extra 50 million. Can we get in Europe in some sort? Because that's going to give us at least a little bit of money instead of no money. And then what players are available and how much are they going to cost? So, it's all easy to say get rid of these players, but you do need a squad, and part of the problem right now is we are in the midst of a season. He is going to have to use these players. He is going to have to get the best out of these players. He is going to have to get them to perform good. We need them to play good. So even if you don't want Marcus Rashford here anymore, or Bruno Fernandes, or any other player, unfortunately, we are stuck together at this moment, and the only thing that we can do is try to benefit each other, in that we need them to play good and be good and help the team out, and they need it as well for their own careers as well. Alien saying, while I'm not saying CR7 Messi are not giants in football, the cheap tricks they pull are never in the league of Cruyff, Best, and Charlton, Van Basten, etc. Well, that's a whole generational thing. That's a whole generational thing. Obviously, the newer generation are going to argue against that. The older generation are going to argue the opposite way. But I hear you. And to each their own on that. I think that's a lot more opinion based. And really, it's what you really prefer. It's more down to preferential, I guess. RSV says, I do hear what you and Richard are trying to say regarding players need to be replaced because the club needs a squad. But my only expectation is Rashford. Exception, sorry, is Rashford. I am done with him. That guy is a major problem. Well, fair enough. I'm not gonna fight you on that. I think there's grounds for you to have that opinion. I think there's facts to back that up. And I think right now it is. Right now it is very split in the fan base. There's people that really want Rashford to stay. I'm a little bit undecided. As of right now, I think I will probably formulate, my official judgment under what happens under Amorim, how he really fits into the system and how he performs, and again, it's going to come from what Marcus Rashford shows me on the pitch. That's really how I'm going to judge Marcus Rashford. It's going to come from what he shows me on the pitch. So it's up to him, really. I think the ball is in his court. I think the ball is in his feet. So, it's up to him. But again, I think if we see what we've seen, the thing is, there's times, and it's strange that it seems like he's really unhappy, and I would love to know what is his unhappiness. Why is it that he appears to be so unhappy every time he plays on the pitch, that it's like he's not enjoying being there? And I would say, if it is actually unhappiness and he is unhappy, then why do you continue to stay here? That's something that I would question Marcus Rashford on a personal level. Is why are you staying at some place or at something and you're not enjoying yourself? You're just hurting yourself, and you're hurting the thing, the club at the end of the day. So I don't know. For me, I want to just give it a little bit more time. We'll give it to the end of the season at least, and then maybe we'll make a more concrete decision, because I think right now it can certainly change still. And Richard saying, I like Rash because he's one of our own, but personally I would let him go. And yeah, fair enough. And you know what? I wouldn't put it this far. I wouldn't be this far away from saying, listen, if there was a good offer and a good money, and then you can give me a clear or a good replacement, I would certainly definitely think it over, and I would definitely consider it, and I wouldn't be against doing it. But again, to just get rid of Rashford, okay, we get rid of Rashford. I want to know how much money we're gonna get from that, and who is the replacement that we're gonna get, because it's one thing to get rid of Rashford, but you don't want to get somebody that's not better than him. You know what I mean? You don't want to get somebody that's not as good. So, and one of those names today has been, and now I'm going to butcher the shit out of his name because I don't even know how to actually say it. I usually just nickname him and call him Kvar. Is it Kvaratskhelia or something like that? The Georgian that plays in the Serie A. We have been linked to him. But let me get through a little bit of this news. Because we started off, but you guys have started with a great discussion. So let's get through this news. Because there's been quite a bit of news. So I want to get through that, and then we could go back to having a wonderful discussion. And I'll go in and out of the chat as well. So, Ruud van Nistelrooy continued his comments from yesterday, saying, after the Leicester game, I will return to my old role as assistant. I want to continue here and be a part of the club. So Ruud essentially confirming that he is staying at Manchester United, and he will continue on in his role as assistant coach under Ruben Amorim. And again, I feel sort of split about that. It has nothing to do with Ruud on a personal level. It has nothing to do with him. It's more so from the player aspect. I worry that there might be a situation that leads to a bit of an undermining of the manager and the coaching staff that comes from the player side if they don't get along with Amorim, or they don't like certain things that he says or does, or some of the other coaching staff says or does, and maybe, they'll only kind of listen to Ruud. And there could be, grounds for, well, if this manager fails, maybe they'll put Ruud in charge. We like Ruud so much, we want Ruud in charge. And there's that aspect. But I think if Amorim is okay with it, I think we can give it a go. And I think, I think Ruud is a person that will do the right thing anyway. Like, I feel like if that sort of stuff does go on and Ruud does become aware of it, I don't think Ruud is gonna, hold it to himself. I think he's going to, let the bosses know at the club. I think Ruud will make Amorim aware of the situation. I don't think Ruud is a sinister man. I don't think he's a cynical man. I don't think he's a bad person. I don't think he's going to be there trying to backstab Amorim, or, try and take his job, or, I think he's there because he really wants to help Manchester United. I think he loves the club, and I think he's going to try and do his best. And I think, if a situation like that does appear, I think he would do the right thing, and kind of call it out as well. So, but I am a little bit worried about it. One of the pieces of news that came out is about Alvaro Fernandez again. This is coming from Record Portugal, saying that Ruben Amorim could bring Alvaro Carreras back to Manchester United. The transfer can gain momentum. United have a £16.7 million buyback clause for Fernandez, and Amorim knows him well. So I would like him back. I think many of us would like him back. I think many of us don't think, he should have been sold to Benfica in the first place. I think we would have probably mostly all kept him at the club. And, we got to pay a little bit of a loan/development fee. But 16.7 million, it could have been worse. And Benfica definitely, with the way Alvaro is progressing there, they would have been able to sell him for way, way higher. They probably would have been able to sell him for 40 plus, if not more. So RSV is saying, I do love Ruud, but I personally think he shouldn't be at the club. Every manager since Fergie left has had a Fergie connection, like Moyes, Neville, LVG, Giggs, Mourinho, Carrick, Ali, Phelan, etc. Eric Ten Hag, McLaren. Yeah, and I do agree with that as well. I did say that, I think he should go. But again, I would probably leave it up a little bit to the discretion of the new manager, or the new head coach. I think if he's okay with it, and it doesn't cause problems, then it is what it is. But personally, I think, Ruud was brought in for Eric Ten Hag. He was brought in because I think he is a good coach. I think he knows how to connect with players. I think he knows how to communicate with players. And he's obviously a legend of the club and an ex-player of the club. So, and we've been kind of down this path before, as you pointed out, with numerous times. So, we kind of want to move away from that a little bit, but we are in this situation as well where, we just spent a lot of money dealing with the manager thing, and maybe one of the things is the financials as well, because I assume if Van Nistelrooy stays, which it seems like he is, I don't think Hake is going to stay. So you're going to have to terminate his contract, And if you terminate Rude's contract, you're gonna have to pay more money, like, because you're breaking contracts. And I don't know if we actually are in a good financial position to do that, considering we just spent a load of money on sacking a manager and hiring a new one. And I think more so, Hake go Rude. You know, at the very least, I would leave him for at least this season if the financials does play an aspect, and then see what we could do in the summer about it. And maybe we could part ways amicably. You know, my opinion: if Amorim don't sell players in Jan and at least get 2 to 3 in, he's a dead man walking. Well, you know. I don't. Well, we're gonna get into that. We're gonna get into that because you say Amorim, and there's news that's come out that it's gonna indicate what the real story is and how this is actually gonna go with him being the head coach at Manchester United. So, Manuel Ugarte has spoken on Ruben Amorim's appointment, and this is why we're doing the show, because there's been a lot of quotes from players and other people about Amorim from Amorim. So I wanted to get into this stuff. There are many questions about him from my colleagues, United players. What surprised them was his age. He also has a strong desire to win, which is very important. I can tell you that they'll like him. Well, I hope so, Ugarte, but again, you are new and you don't know these lot, like how we know these lot in terms of, you know, how we've seen them perform well for a manager and then get to a point where it looks like they've given up on a manager. So, you know, I take that with the salt of grain. I hope they do like him, and I hope, Ugarte, I hope you are right. I hope you are. But I think you might be a little bit naive on that because you've just met them. You don't know them. You weren't here when, you know, the shit was really bad and when the shit hit the fan. So, you know, that sounds all well and nice, but again, Manchester United fans have worries and skepticism for a reason. We have Amorim quotes. We have an update on Lenny Yoro. Lenny Yoro is expected to return to the Manchester United squad against Ipswich Town on November 24th, Ruben Amorim's first game. So, Yoro, it seems like, can and might make his debut when Ruben Amorim also makes his debut, which is just absolutely fantastic. I think we can't all wait to see, you know, what this kid gives us. And let's see how he does, and hopefully he stays injury free as well. And Ali and I talked about this, and you know, it's fine if you want to think that they're bums and Qatar should have bought United. And maybe, you know, Qatar is coming back in, and there's rumors about that. That's all well and fine. But I think it was very obvious when the deal got completed that the Glazers were never going to fully sell unless the Qataris made an absolutely ridiculous, and I mean ridiculous, because they already offered a lot of money. And the Glazers probably wanted double to really sell, because it has to be ridiculous. Because for them, the way they view the club is it is an asset. It is a business that gives them passive income, pretty much, to a certain extent. And you know, why would you sell it for a one lump sum fee when you can just continue to own it and get money year by year and just hold it on forever? And you could also pass it down to your kids if you want. You know, you could keep it in the family. It is something that, you know, it's kind of a once in a lifetime opportunity to really own. And I think it was very obvious at the end, when it came to a close, that the Glazers were never going to sell. They used the Qataris' bid as a real money valuation to get their partial investment. They always wanted partial investment. So, you know, it's fine if you think it's fine if you think INEOS are bums, but it's not INEOS' fault that the Glazers never wanted a full sale. It's not INEOS' fault that Qatar didn't necessarily get the bid. Or didn't get the win, because there were other people out there offering partial investment, and I think we probably got the best deal in terms of a partial investment, because the other people that were out there were hedge funds and just basically just money vultures that don't give a shit about the club. And we wouldn't necessarily be in this situation where we have a Omar Barada, a Dan Ashworth, and football people in a football aspect, we probably would have still been operating kind of in a similar way that we were operating post Ferguson, with an appointed CEO by the Glazers specifically, and non-football people in charge of the football side. So, you know, but if they come back in and they want to take it, so be it. But they gotta, that's for them to figure out. But listen, we were talking about players, and this is gonna kind of lead into the main topic and the main thing that we're really gonna talk into about the potential clear out under Amorim. What could happen? But one of these big accounts online, for Manchester United aggregators, they held polls for the fan base per se. And obviously it could be mixed in a little bit. It's online, but I think it gives kind of a good indication. They get a lot of votes and a lot of viewers. And they put out polls on the players of who do you think, should they be kept, should they be loaned, or should they be sold? So I'm gonna run through this so we can kind of gauge where the fan base is kind of leaning towards. So Christian Eriksen is the first one, and it was keep, loan, or sell. 20% voted to keep Eriksen. 79.1% want to sell Christian Eriksen, and I think I fit in that 79%. Even though he's had a resurgence, I think we can do with a refresh there. And we can get somebody else in, and we can move them on. Casemiro, 36% have voted to keep. 63% have voted to sell, and I agree with that as well. I think Cash should go, and we should get somebody that has legs and somebody that's going to be here for the next 5+ years as well, to kind of go with Ugarte in there. Ugarte was listed 84%. Said to stay. We're not going to talk about that too much because that's obvious. Kobe Mainu, 97.7%. I don't understand how it's not 100, but again, like I said, you're never going to get 100% support. They 97.7% voted to keep Kobe Mainu, which we don't even need to talk about Kobe Mainu. There's obvious reasons for that. Toby Collier, 42.9% voted to keep him, 49.5% voted to loan him out, and 7.6% of people voted to sell him. I don't think we should be selling him, and I think maybe we should give him a loan. If we're not going to give him, enough game time to sort of develop, I wouldn't be against the loan. Dan Gore, 16.5% voted to keep him, 73.5% voted for a loan, and 10.1% voted to sell. And again, I'm not against the loan if it helps them develop. If we're not going to give them the game time that they need, then we got to loan them out to help them develop. Even like we did with Diallo, we also did it with Delo at a point, and a couple other players. Like, you can loan somebody out, they can develop, they can have good seasons wherever you loan them out, and then they can come back to the club and either take a spot or at least fight for a spot. So, 91.6% people voted for Rasmus Højlund as keep. They want to keep him. 6.3% voted to sell. 2.1% voted to loan. And these polls are out of about 10,000 people. So obviously it's not like, the entire fan base, but it gives a sort of a good indication. Since they are an aggregator and they have all different types of Manchester United fans following them, with different opinions and different thoughts, I think it's a good indicator for the fan base. Marcus Rashford, the one that we were talking about in the beginning of the show, 61.9% have voted that they want to keep Marcus Rashford. 1% has voted for a loan, which doesn't make sense. I don't know why, and again, you're always going to get somebody somewhere out there. And 37% want to sell Marcus Rashford. So, I think this one is a little bit more lenient towards Marcus Rashford. Maybe but I think he's certainly one that certainly divides the fan base, for sure. And I think, maybe there's some hope in that he can come good under Amorim. But I think if it goes bad, I think, that percentage will definitely shift the other way for sure. I think it's walking a fine line right now. Joshua Zirkzee at the moment, 49% have voted to keep him. 12.5% want him loaned, and 37.9% want him sold already. And again, he's another one, and I said in the beginning of the show, it is hard to defend him right now, but we need to try and support him the best as possible. But he needs to certainly improve. And he has a lot of pressure on him already. You know, first season in, I usually try to give the players one season at least to adjust, and I kind of give them a little bit of a free pass for the first season. But he is well behind the mark, and he's going to need to step it up for sure. You know, and I'm hoping by the time we get to the end of the season, he's definitely developed in some form, one way or another. 92% have voted to keep Ahmad. 2% want him loaned, and 4% or 5% want him sold. Garnacho, 73% want to keep him, 10% want him loaned, and 15% want him sold. Ethan Wheatley, 68% want him loaned, 15% want him sold, and 15% want him kept. I think Wheatley, I think we should loan him probably, because it doesn't look like he's going to be able to kind of break his way in there unless one of the strikers suffers an injury. But then you could always put Marcus Rashford there or whatever. So, but he would obviously then be on the bench, and maybe we'll get some more minutes. But I think he needs more game time, and he needs to do more development as well. Anthony, 87.6% voted to sell him. 6% want to keep him. 6% want him loaned. Yeah, I think Anthony, is out the door though. I mean, he could come good under Amorim if he fits the system and plays well. So, you know, some people have floated the idea of him as a wing back because of his work rate. And, you know, I don't know, but, you know, I think for him, that's fair. He's been very poor, 2 seasons. This is his 3rd season. He's pretty much done almost next to nothing. And so that makes sense that they're there. But we have the main news and the big news and the headline of this show and the headline of the thumbnail is about Ruben Amorim, and this news came from Rob Dawson. Now, I know, guys, I usually pull up the news on the screen so you guys could see it, but I didn't have time to do that today, so just go with me as I go along. So the news that came from Rob Dawson about Ruben Amorim, his say on players, and how INEOS are technically going to operate this is as follows. And it starts with, Manchester United will give Ruben Amorim a say before making contract decisions on players approaching the end of their deals. Victor Lindelöf and Christian Eriksen are among the United players out of contract at the end of the season. It then continues on to say, Ruben Amorim will be asked for his opinion about which players to retain, but final decisions will be made by Omar Barada, Dan Ashworth, and Jason Wilcox. So to me, that's big news, because number one, obviously he still has some sort of a say. He is still going to be asked on his opinion, and it will be taken into consideration. But the major shift and the biggest thing is that this is now going to go on our owners and the people in charge of Manchester United, which is obviously INEOS, Barada, Ashworth, Wilcox, etc. And I kind of sort of like it, because I think the fan base gets too caught up in today's time about the manager bought this player, the manager wanted this player, the manager didn't sell this player. And I like how it removes sort of that aspect in a certain sense, because the manager has a job to do in terms of coaching the team. And also there's always that aspect of it's not always the manager and who makes those decisions. It's the board as well. It's the football hierarchy that could potentially keep a player or not. Now, the fact that this is coming out tells us that now people are aware that, you know, his opinion will be considered. But if the likes of a Marcus Rashford isn't sold, or the likes of a Bruno Fernandes isn't sold, or any other player, the blame will then go on the hierarchy. It will go on Barada, Ashworth, and Wilcox. And I think that is a much more structured way. I also think it brings a little bit more peace to the fan base, that we know for sure that this player is staying because one of these three, or all three, made the decision to keep that certain player and didn't want to sell them, and that they wanted them at the club. I think before it was a lot more muddied, and it made a lot more confusion, and it offered a lot more hysteria. So, but that is the reason why also he is now called the head coach and not a manager. That is the reason for the position change. I kind of knew that this was coming. I kind of expected that this was coming. You know, and I think there will be good things to come out of this, and I hope it could be even better if they do their job correctly. And if they do get rid of the people that are problems, if they do get rid of, you know, the problem players, and you know, if it is something that, you know, you gotta move Marcus Rashford on, then you move Marcus Rashford on. And it's up to them. It's really up to them. So let's see where that takes us. Morten Heimland, the midfielder, the well talked about midfielder, highly hyped, was speaking about Manchester United. He was asked thoughts about it, and he said, I think Manchester United are in good hands with Ruben Amorim. He also said, in football, you don't have any guarantees. I can tell you that we had 3 tough games last week, and the coach didn't give us any days off. Speaking to Ruben about the whole process, we still need to win our games. We are sad Ruben is leaving, but we are getting a new coach, and a new coach that we can believe in. Sporting are making the right choice by taking him, and I believe in them. He also said, of course, Ruben was one of the reasons why I came to Sporting. When you work with Ruben, you see a clear picture. That was important when I joined Sporting, first to understand how he plays. They want the way that he manages the team inside the pitch and outside the pitch as well is not like anything I have seen in my short career. So, you know, very good comments. I think it could provide just a little bit more insight into Ruben Amorim as a manager and also as a man. And you know, it's all been fairly positive. It's all been fairly good remarks. You know, and it's just another thing that's encouraging about this guy. And hopefully he can connect with our players like he's connected with these players at Sporting, like players like Himland and Caio Queiroz, and etc. etc. He also spoke on if Rasmus Højlund and Christian Eriksen have been in touch about Ruben Amorim, and he said, I haven't spoken to them yet. Maybe I will see them in the international break. I haven't spoken with them, but I think they will have a million questions when I speak to them next. So obviously they're all on the same international team. They do know each other. They haven't spoken to each other, but I'm sure when they link up for international duty, they will probably ask him, you know, what he's like, what he demands, things to do, things don't to do. You know, etc. etc. So I was just reading the chat. So Ruben Amorim had his comments here that he made today in his press conference. And by the way, I just need to say, you know, during this press conference, there was an English journalist. I missed his name somewhere. I've seen it before, but I can't remember it. And this English journalist, very, very rude, and a very, very bad journalist, demanded Ruben Amorim to speak in English. And he was told numerous times that he was not going to speak in English. He was doing the Portuguese section, and that there is a section for him to respond in English to English questions for the English press, because they are playing Manchester City tomorrow. And this guy, being very rude, proceeded to ask Ruben Amorim the question anyway, and then ended the question by saying, answer the question in English, in that manner, like he owns Ruben Amorim and Ruben Amorim is his dog. And Ruben Amorim answered, I think, very well. And I kind of liked the way in which he answered, and he basically told him I can't speak English, and he told him, he said, why can't you speak English? He said, because I can't. Now obviously he can. He's saying that right now he can't speak English because he has to speak Portuguese. And it's not that part of the press the press conference. So, you know, they already started. They already started, but I think he's gonna do well because I think he handles himself very well in those types of situations and stuff. So yeah. Um, and Amorim, questions that go as follows is the more important ones is he said my communication at the beginning will be simpler because it is in English. I think I will have to spend 3 months. They say that is enough. The players will not be offended if I say that they are more basic. I give training sessions here in English. So she's speaking about his English. I've heard him speak English. He speaks perfectly fine English. I think for him to for you to understand his message and clear point. Also, we do have 2 Portuguese players on the squad, so they can translate for him if he does have to say something more clear cut in Portuguese. They can relay that message to the rest of the team. Obviously, you want it to come from the head coach, but you know. He also said, it will be a different adaptation. My life will be the same. There is a way of playing an idea, but communication will be more basic. So, you know, he then got to the part where he refuses to answer a question in English and said, I cannot speak in English now. They will miss me in Portugal. Which I thought was a kind of funny tongue-in-cheek type of thing. And that's why I say I think he handles those situations very well. For sure. He also said, tomorrow I will be Sporting's coach and only Sporting's. From the 11th, I will be United's. I know they will draw conclusions from results, but I don't care. I understand the interest. For me, it's just another game against a team from the best league. And he's talking about Manchester City game because he does have to play City. He followed that up by saying, if the result versus City is negative, expectations will drop. If we win, they will think that the new Sir Alex Ferguson has arrived. And he said that jokingly. He laughed. He then continued on to say, what interests me is to win. A good farewell in Alavalde, win in Braga, and start a new adventure in Manchester United. And he's not wrong. Like, you know, if he wins tomorrow, if he beats Manchester City, the hype and the story that's going to go around him, you know, they're certainly going to say something to the likes of, you know, the new Sir Alex Ferguson is here. And if he loses, they're gonna, you know, the banter's gonna come out that, you know, he lost to Pep and he lost to City, and he, you know, he's gonna fail at Manchester United, yada yada yada. So he's not necessarily wrong. I think one of the biggest and strongest statements he made in his press conference today is he was asked, you know, what made him want to go, or why did he choose to go to Manchester United? And he said, I chose the club I wanted. He said there was no room for indecision. And he also said that this is my club. Which I think is a huge statement because, you know, he's certainly putting it out there, talking about how he sees United as the biggest job he can take. He didn't want any other job. He didn't want the Liverpool job. He didn't want West Ham. He didn't want, you know, Real Madrid or something like that. He could have waited maybe because Ancelotti potentially could leave. He could have waited because potentially maybe Pep is going to go. But he clearly and obviously wanted Manchester United. So he clearly, you know, loves Manchester United. And he's obviously a fan. So I think we're very lucky that we find ourselves in our circumstances that somebody like this, that's an up and coming, potentially one of the best managers in the world, and he's young, that he has a sort of affection for Manchester United, and therefore he picks us over other clubs. So yeah. Amorim also talked about Jose Mourinho a little bit, saying the impact he had on my career was the way he treated me. He showed me that you can win everything and be a different person than you think. A special coach who opened doors for us, and very well. Now, one of interest that's specifically more towards Manchester United is, again, by Record Portugal, about Alvaro Fernandez, basically saying that former Benfica defender, talking about Alvaro Fernandez, saying that I fear that Ruben Amorim wants him at Manchester United. And I think very much so. He should be coming to Manchester United. He should be coming back. We should have never gotten rid of him. So, you know, he did watch, apparently, the match against Chelsea yesterday. So I guess I wonder if he thought what we all thought, which he probably did, because it was pretty boring and it wasn't a great game from both sides. But you know, our ability or lack of goals. I hope he's already identified a few problems, and he's already started some type of work for United, analysis wise, watching the team, looking at players, seeing how they're performing on the pitch. So again, all good stuff. I kind of expect that. Obviously, you know, you're taking over when he's going to have time to watch our matches. For example, you know, they play tomorrow, we play Thursday. Thursday he'll do training. They obviously have another match at the weekend, but obviously he'll have some time to watch the game, and he'll probably watch that game as well, and he'll watch our game on the weekend as long as they don't line up with each other. So Angry Frank is here. Angry Frank is saying too much pressure from sponsors / commercial partners to pick certain high-profile players. Not sure that's going to change under the new head coach. Well, maybe so. You know, it's something that nobody really talks about. And I think it's a very good point. You know, there are the big brands out there, such as you know, Adidas, etc., that they do have also deals with Manchester United on the commercial side that could certainly have an influence. You know, on the commercial side of things that goes into the football side of things. Now, again, you know, the news that has come out is that the reason why he is a head coach is because he is not going to be the one that is going to have the final say. It is going to go on INEOS. His opinion will be taken into consideration, but it will be the likes of Omar Barada, Jason Wilcox, and etc. to decide which players need to leave this club and which players will stay. So I think the only good thing, or one of the good things is that, you know, if the clear out doesn't happen, we at least know who is 100% responsible for them not getting cleared out. And it will now be on INEOS, and it will not be, you know, have anything to do with the manager. Which I think from the aspect of the fans is good, because I think there's a lot of division that gets caused because nobody really knows who is doing what. Is it the manager that's deciding to keep certain players? Is it the club that is deciding to keep certain players for commercial reasons or whatever? But we do know now that he will not have the say. He will have a say, but he doesn't have the ultimate say. So at least we get that much part. But as of right now, I think we could be a little bit doubtful and a little bit afraid, but I think INEOS have done a good job so far. So I let's see what happens when we get maybe to January and definitely to the summer, and let's see what they do, because they could very well surprise us. I think they surprised us in certain moments already. And they could certainly well surprise the fan base in fact of maybe they do get to the summer and they do clear out, you know, players that people have been asking for them to be sold and moved on, or that they think are problems, or that they thought the club would never get rid of for commercial reasons and stuff like that. So let's see what happens. We don't know 100%. Obviously, we haven't reached that point. We have to get there, and then we can take, you know, what fact is given to us. Amorim was also asked and said that, you know, it's a difficult week for him. It's both the worst and best of my life. Difficult because I'm leaving a place I love, but I'm joining one of the best clubs in the world. And again, he keeps, you know, talking about Manchester United in that aspect. And, you know, I think our fans would say we are, but certainly on the pitch, we haven't been for quite some time. But you can tell the way he sees this opportunity and the way he sees Manchester United is pretty much exactly what you want from somebody that is going to be in charge. So yeah. He also said about the Premier League that there are the best coaches and the best teams in England. It will be a different world, but I need it as a coach. So, you know, it's not only just about Manchester United, it's about himself as well. He wants the challenge. He wants that challenge. Lyle is in here. Lyle, good to see you. How you doing? We're just going over some Ruben Amorim quotes from today. And pretty much, you know, I don't know if you guys caught the biggest part of the news, but the biggest part of the news, and that wasn't the quotes, is that Ruben Amorim will not have the final say on transfers, on what players will be staying. So this has come from Rob Dawson saying that, you know, Manchester United will give Ruben Amorim a say before making contract decisions on players approaching the end of their deals. Lindelöf and Eriksen are among the United players out of contract at the end of the season. And that follows up by saying Amorim will be asked for his opinion about which players to retain, but final decisions will be made by Barada, Ashworth, and Wilcox. So, again, I think that's the biggest change that's coming to Manchester United. It's obviously why his title is now head coach and not Manchester United manager. I think we were all sort of kind of expecting that anyway. It was something they were trying to do under Ten Hag. But that's why they gave him a contract extension and not a new contract. I think if they gave him a new contract, he wanted more years. So it was something that INEOS weren't willing to do. So they said, you can continue on in that role. We'll just extend your contract instead. And then I think it was always the plan of, if this fails and we have to sack him when we get the new manager in, we will go down the route of bringing in somebody as a head coach and not a manager, and that the decisions on what players ultimately, the final say of who stays and who goes at this club, will go down to the football hierarchy. And I think that's what we need anyway. I don't know, like, what do you guys think about that aspect? Because I think it's very important for the club, and I think it is actually a big deal. Like, what do you guys feel about that? Basically INEOS, so Barada, etc., will be the ones in charge of, you know, they will be the deciding factor of if a Marcus Rashford is sold or not, if Marcus Rashford stays at this club or he will be cleared out, if Bruno Fernandes stays at this club or he will be cleared out, or players like Lindelof, Casemiro, Maguire, etc., etc. Do you think it's more beneficial for the club as a whole that, you know, the hierarchy is going to have that final say? Because Amorim will have an input, but Amorim does not get to be like, I want Rashford, I like Rashford, Rashford stays, and that's end of story. You know, he can say all those things, but if the hierarchy thinks, you know, he's a problem, he's not performing well enough, or they can do some type of a football deal where they get good money and they could get somebody else in that position, then they will move him on. Do you guys think that that is good, or do you think that it's not going to be good, you know, for Amorim, and it might hinder him, it might hurt him, it might ultimately lead him to fail as well? Because there is also the aspect of, like, you know, if there is a player, like, let's say he wants Bruno Fernandes to stay, he likes Bruno Fernandes, he thinks Bruno Fernandes is important to his system, and Bruno Fernandes plays well, but the club decide to cash in on him. Well, Amorim is losing one of his favorite players, and an important player, and he doesn't really get to be able to stop that from happening. It just has to happen, and therefore Bruno will go, and then the club will work with him, obviously, to bring in somebody else. I think it is the proper way a football club operates, and especially in today's time. I think that's how most clubs operate anyway. So I don't think it's a massive problem. I just think that INEOS have to do it in the correct way. They can't do it where they're constantly ignoring the manager and doing their own thing, and then, you know, basically hurting the squad and the overall project that the manager is trying to carry out. But certainly INEOS want the head coach, I call the manager again, they want the head coach to really focus on being a head coach, which is just coaching the team and kind of managing the team on the pitch and not too much of the outside of the pitch. So yeah. Um, Mason Mount has returned to Manchester United training, but he'll be handled carefully and might not be available before the international break. I mean, this guy is paper mache, man. But at least he's back in training, and I hope he doesn't get injured again because I don't know what we do with him. I mean, he's another one that we should be talking about if we should keep him or not, because it seems like it was a really bad buy. And he's not been able to really help the squad out because he hasn't been available. So, if you're not available, you're of no use to us. So, yeah, Mason's sick note. Yeah. I mean, he's got to stay fit or he's got to go. My opinion. You're no good to us if you're there for one game, half a game, 2 games, and then you miss 4 or 5 games on the bounce. You are useless. Regardless of ability wise. And Amorim, as I said before, with the strong statement, and it's in the title of the thumbnail. He said, quote, "I chose Manchester United. It's my club." And I like that from him. It's a strong, short, simple statement. But again, he's making it very aware that I came here because I like this club. I believe in this club. And I viewed this club as a big club, and this is a big opportunity. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And regardless of how bad it's been there, I still see them as, the biggest club in the world. And I think I can help them, and I want to help them. So, I definitely giving me some positive vibes from there. And then on the side note, one of the transfer pieces that we got today is Ruben Amorim is keen on signing Kvaratskhelia. I can never pronounce his name. I call him Kvar. The Napoli winger, the Georgian, for Manchester United. Napoli have put a 90 million price tag on the attacker as contract talks are at an impasse. So, he was in contract talks with Napoli. They have stalled, and there's a possibility that he may be looking to go. I think we are being used in this aspect to get that contract over the line for him, because that does happen to us a lot. And the fact that they are in contract talks and it is at an impasse, clearly he wanted to sign an extension. Clearly they wanted certain things that they aren't getting it, and therefore now there's going to be rumors about him potentially going to another club to try and put pressure on the club to give him and whatever his agent wants. So, yeah, 90 million. I mean, I don't know how many years is left on it. He is a very good player, and I think he is very young. In terms of, not very young, like he's 24 or something like that, right? So he still has another, you would say, 10 years of his career or so. Now, would they get 90 million for him? I don't think they would. I think, Napoli putting a 90 million price tag on him is kind of to fend off potential suitors, and then also to try and get the highest price possible if he was to leave. And maybe kind of, get rid of the interest so they can haggle a little bit as well in terms of trying to get their contract negotiation over the line for him. So, I think there's not too much in that right now. I also think, this is coming from court offside, so I think they're using Ruben Amorim's name. Again, he hasn't started for Manchester United. You never heard of him. Really? That's crazy lines. Crazy lines. He's really good. He's really good. He's a really good player. He's fantastic winger. He plays in the Serie A, of course, and he plays for Napoli. But he's very, 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 very good. Go check him out after the show. But again, I want Manchester United paying 90 million for a winger? No. And this is what I'm saying. Like, would I take him? I would. Would I take him as a replacement for Rashford? Yes. If you told me we're going to sell Rashford and get him, I'm all for it. But then he's 90 million, or, he's going to be very, very high. And I am worried about spending that kind of money on players, because we've had very bad luck with doing that. And if it doesn't work out, you're taking a big risk. You have a lot of money to lose. It's a bad optic for the club. It's a bad view for the club. So, um, you know, but a player like his talent and his age, I would take him over Rashford. I would certainly take him over Rashford. I think many people would. But this is what I'm saying. You know, if you're gonna get rid of a player like Rashford, who are you replacing him with? Like you have to show me and tell me who the replacement is before I say 100% we're getting rid of Marcus Rashford, because it has to be somebody that is of quality. And that's going to have a future at this club. It cannot be somebody that we take a massive gamble on and it not work. Let me see. I think we got a couple more. I think we got a couple more quotes. Oh, we did not. What have I been missing? Yeah. No, you got to check it out. Watkins seems simple, or Eze. Well, they could very well go for them. Obviously, it's still very early. I don't think we're gonna do much in terms of January. They may surprise us. I don't expect it. I do expect some type of business, whether we sell a player or two or loan them out. And maybe we get one player in, but I don't expect much. I don't. But I will be looking for the summer. And obviously, when we get close to the summer, obviously, you know, that's when things are really going to heat up in terms of, you know, what players are we actually in for? What players are we actually looking to bring in and stuff like that? You know, but those players are going to cost a premium as well, Lions. You know, Watkins and Eze. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You get I wouldn't pay 90 million for Watkins. That's outlandish. I would pay 90 million for that guy before I pay 90 million for Watkins. You know what I mean? And that's I absolutely not. Watkins ain't Watkins is good. He's very good to a certain degree. I don't think he's like elite. I don't think he's there yet. He could get there. He has some more years. But no way. And obviously you're gonna pay a premium for him because he's English. He plays for Villa. Villa doesn't have to sell him. Villa has money. They're in a very good position. They're in the Champions League. They're performing well in the Champions League. They're gonna get more money for wherever they finish in the Champions League. You know, it's a very tough deal. And Eze, we're gonna have to pay a good amount of money for him as well. So, no, I mean, no way, no way. I would never pay that money, no. But I think Aston Villa would demand something around there if you want Ollie Watkins. For sure. I think they would demand quite a lot of money, especially if it is another Premier League club. It might be a bigger gamble, but I think Kvar has has a much better ability, but they're two different positions anyway. Obviously, Watkins is a striker. Kvar is he's a winger, so they're not even in the same position. But in terms of ability, in my opinion, I would rather pay 90 for Kvar, or just purely based off of ability. But I wouldn't rather pay 90. I'd rather pay not 90 for either, because I think 90 is crazy to pay for a player, especially with kind of the project that we have at hand. I think we have to do part 2 this summer on building the base. I think we did part 1 with the 5 players we bring in the summer. I think we need to do part 2, especially now that, you know, Amorim is here and we're going to have to, you know, move forward with this project and this style of play and this you know, this game model that we are trying to develop. And I think we have to do part 2. I don't think we are necessarily at the part where we should be looking to spend 80, 90, or even 70 million on one single player. I still think that we need to kind of spread it around as much as possible and I think we should be doing signings of 50 million and under, and get as many of those as possible, and then maybe year 3 on the INEOS and the third summer, depending on how far along the squad is. You know, if we, so for me, if we build it a little bit and we get to the point of like where Arsenal have technically pushed themselves, where they went from being you know, subpar to now they challenge, or they're always in like a title race. I think when we get to that point, that's when I would start looking at like, okay, we need like 1 or 2 of the final pieces, the key pieces, spend 90 million, 80 million, 70 million on this one player, get them in, and let's make the push for it. So Lion saying, I'm confident our attacking players are going to come good with Amorim's formation if he changes. I think there is a big hope for that, and I think they certainly can. I think the whole team can certainly come good. Because I think the system itself, on paper at the very least, when you try to apply it to Manchester United, it looks very good. It looks like a very intricate system. It looks like a very fluid system as well. And I think it being so fluid makes it very dangerous in terms of attack. It's hard to defend and it's hard to beat. And also, I think it fits a majority of the squad of players that we have right now anyway. So I think overall, it will be a good fit. And maybe even a Xerxes. But yeah, I think, you know, I think I think, you know, I think it may take a bit of an adjustment period. It seems like a perfect system for a squad, and that's what I'm saying. Like when you really go, because I started doing this. Like obviously, you know, you could look at it at face value, but I started reading articles, people breaking it down in depth, showing how it moves and what is required, and how it actually operates in attack and defense. And you know, when you start really looking at it and you start picturing the players we have, and you start picturing where we can put these players, and then you think about, well, how many players we have, and like the interchangeability of, you know, well, I could put that player there, or I could play him here, or I could play here, and the combinations that you could do, even at defense. You know, at defense, you could play 3 straight actual center backs. You could play 2 center backs and 1 of the left backs. You could play, or 1 of the right backs. You could play the left back and the right back at center back, and 1 center back. You can do so many things with this system and the way it plays, and the how interchangeable you can make it, and how many options you have, and the kind of different routes you can go down in terms of what players you put in what positions, allows for a lot of options. And I think it's great, because the more options you have, the better. So and then when you look at our players, you can say, well, like, we have a numerous amount of players that could play numerous amounts of positions technically. There's a lot of combinations and different kind of ways we can go about this, which I think is awesome. Because if it doesn't, if a player doesn't work in one spot, they might work well in another spot, and therefore they can still be useful to the squad, and it's not totally lost. And then you're not also totally short-handed. They might be able to fill a position that maybe you are short-handed, and then you are no longer short-handed. So there's a lot of combinations and opportunities with this system. And I do think, you know, at least right now on paper lines, I do think that it does seem like a perfect system for our squad. Let's see what happens with the integration process, the learning process. Let's see how much they take it into stride and stuff like that. And let's see if they adapt to it and they take it on, because that is, at the end of the day, the most important part. They need to be able to buy into this, and they need to be able to feel comfortable as well playing it, and execute as well. So, you know, have Fulham beaten Brentford. Is that what I'm saying? 2-1. With Fulham scoring 2 goals in stoppage time. They've scored in the 92nd minute and 97th minute. I mean, that's crazy. That's insane. But that's football, man. That's just nuts. Amorim's system. Lyle saying Amorim's system could work well with this bunch of players we have. Højlund is going to shine. Well, I think that's one that I'm the most excited for sure. Because you've seen Gaio Queiroz and how he's like shined there. And I think Højlund definitely has the ability. And I think many times we feel very frustrated for him because we feel like he gets a lack of opportunities. He gets a lack of a look on the pitch in terms of from his teammates and giving him service with the ball. And if the system goes well and it clicks well, then I think we're going to see Rasmus Højlund really kind of start turning into a star striker, scoring a ton of goals, and just improving his game overall and really becoming a main name in football and for Manchester United and as a striker. So Lion saying, I'm telling you, Maguire is going to shine, like Lyle says about Højlund. Listen, maybe, but maybe he's still a sub. But maybe he does. You know, he played very good in England in the back five. I think it definitely helps. Because of his lack of pace, he still has, you know, the wing backs to cover him, and he has two other center backs that he's playing with. So, you know, I'm not against it. He can very well shine. I think he probably played his best football in five backs anyway. So, you know, it does make sense. He's a little bit older now, of course, and he's probably a little bit slower. I think he played well when he was available. He's obviously injured. And I think his performances at United have definitely improved since he, you know, first came. But yeah, I think for any player, I think you know, right now there's any possibility. Anything is possible right now. You know, Maguire could be playing out of his skull and he could be starting every week in that system. Anthony could become a starter at wing back. If he plays well and he adapts to the system and he takes his chances. You know, we don't really know what is actually going to happen and how well some of these players might take this new opportunity and this new chance and kind of really perform in this system. So it is still wait and see. It's, you know, the time is coming soon. It's you know, what is it, about 8 days till he takes over or so. He takes over, and then we're gonna have to wait 2 weeks to actually see us, you know, in a match with the international break. That's the only thing that's gonna suck, but it's gonna be a good time for him to prep, get ready, and then when we come back, it'll be time to start judging and to start seeing how these players take on this system and how we look, and you know, how much of a difference it's actually going to be. The Fulham Brentford game was insane. What a game. Well, I'll watch the highlights after. That's yeah. That's why I didn't read it out. But listen, guys, we're gonna end the show here because we covered everything and we had a good talk, and I didn't want to go live too long because we went live kind of late. That was my fault. I messed up the time in my head. And I wasn't paying attention and stuff, so we went kind of live late. I didn't want this to run too long. I just wanted to come on, have a little bit of a discussion, cover, you know, the news that came out today. We pretty much went through all the news. It wasn't a lot of news, but it was a lot of good quotes, Amorim speaking and stuff like that. And I don't think we'll go live tomorrow because there's Champions League football and stuff like that. If anything, maybe we'll do like a little bit of a discussion talk the day before the match, and then obviously we'll do the Red Devil recap. Yeah, I would 30 minutes is decent for a show. You know, a lot of them, they do 45 minutes. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, there's no reason to drag it on. We'll cap it in an hour and a half. It's because it's getting late as well. I did the show late, so it's, you know, if it was a little bit earlier, we could have done it a little bit longer. But I don't want to drag it out for no reason. So, watch along for the Sporting game. You know what? Maybe we could do that. Albeit though, it is supposed to be a United channel. And it'd be weird to do kind of a city. I mean, we can. But I gotta see if I got time tomorrow. Because I got things I gotta do, so I don't know. I don't even know if I'm gonna be able to necessarily watch it. So, I'll let you guys know if I do decide. I will announce it, of course. And we could probably do it. But yeah, I'll give it a thought and I'll let you guys know. Cause I got some things I gotta take care of. But Lyle saying Patriots lost again this weekend. What is going on? The Lions Packers game was fun. The Patriots are done, Lyle. The Patriots are done, buddy. The dynasty is over, man. They're over. They're done. They're like United. You know what I mean? Like they've hit the period where they're going to be bad for the next however many years. You know that is it's done and dusted. You know the quarterback is good. The kid is good. He is good. There's a future in him, but the rest of the team around him is not very good. So it's not great. Good night, Richard. Thank you for stopping by. Everyone should stop saying this player should go and he should come. We need that Discord server to chat during games and other games. But yeah, I'll get that up. At the very least, I could set it up so we could chat. The integration of trying to get the call in from the Discord aspect into the stream is the annoying part, because I still haven't been able to find out how I can chat. What I can't, unless I mute myself. I think that's what it is. So when we do the call in, right? It will be through Discord. I can then put the Discord into the live stream, but I would then have to, I think I have to mute myself so that you don't hear me twice, because you would hear me through Discord and then you would hear me on the stream. And then there's the thing about delay as well, because we'll be talking. You're going to talk through the Discord. The Discord will go through the stream. I'm going to hear you through the stream. And then the stream is on a bit of a delay. So when we're talking, I will hear you after, or you will hear me after, something like that. There's a delay as well. So these are these things that I'm trying to figure out. There's like these minute details so that it runs smoothly. But I could at least set it up. But I gotta take a time. I've been just all over the place. I've been trying to do like a million things, and I'm like getting nothing done. So I just got to take a day where I sit down and just hash it all out. But yeah, we'll get that. I'll let you guys know. Maybe we'll do a watch along. I got to see what tomorrow brings me. Can we not just turn down the telly? Nah, I don't think it works like that. But don't worry, we'll figure it out, because people do it. So there's a way. That's all good. The server to grow for now is awesome to start off. Yeah, and then we could always throw it in the live chat as well. People could jump in there as well, and we could always promote it as well. So, yeah, I could probably maybe later tonight I'll kind of just set up a little bit template of it, like a shell, and then kind of fine tune it over the next couple days, little here, little there. But I'll let you guys know. Maybe we will do a watch along for tomorrow. It's not a bad idea. It's a big match, so. And we could analyze and watch, the game together and kind of talk about, Amorim and the system and how they're playing. But I'll let you guys know. I'll give you like I'll put it in the community tab about somewhere about an hour before. The line says, I honestly don't have a clue what you're all talking. It's all right. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's not to make or break for you, Lions. Don't worry about it. Yeah, but we'll speak we'll speak soon. I gotta go take care of some things as well. So good chat, guys. Have a good night. Be good. And we'll see each other very soon. Maybe tomorrow. And if not, then the day after, or for the Red Devil recap. I'll keep you guys posted. I'll keep you guys updated for sure. Take care. Have a good night. Good speaking to you all. Stay safe. And yeah, we'll speak soon. Cheers to all of you.